Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me for Off the Hook with Matty D. I am your host, Matt DiNardo, and today is a very special Off the Hook with Matty D. I got to get into this. So I was at one of my Fly Fishing Virginia talks, and I met this guy, Darrel DeLeon. And Darrel, first of all, thanks so much for joining us today.
Matt, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I had a great time last night.
It was unbelievable. First of all, you are the head guide and owner of Montana Trout Hunters. I love the name because, I mean, you're hunting trout. And you're not hunting trout, you're hunting trout.
Yeah.
Big, yeah.
I have a love affair with big fish.
Yeah, no.
And that's what I do. And those big boys, they're not often just in the middle of a run. They're a little more obscure, and so yeah, we hunt them down.
You really do, and you know your waters well. And we're going to get into that bit, but while we're talking here, I'm going to pull up this. This is kind of your intro video that you showed last night, and I want to show this to our viewers because if you don't watch this in the first 10 seconds and be like, "What's this guy's number? I'm calling." There's something wrong with you as a trout angler. I mean, this is the mayfly hatch, the wildlife. The rockets shooting out of the water, browns and rainbows. This is great stuff.
Oh, it is the best river in the lower 48, hands down, bar none. We have an honest, legitimate average of 18 inches with 20-inch fish caught almost every day. And 4,000 or 5,000 fish per mile. It can't be beat.
It's incredible. All right, so let's kind of take a little background. First of all, how did you get interested in fly fishing? It just didn't happen last night, obviously.
No, it didn't. And as a youngster, I actually learned how to fish from my grandmother. I had a very tomboy grandmother who grew up on Martha's Vineyard in a 40-bedroom house, and she was just quite the tomboy. And my grandmother's actually the one that was with me when I caught my first fish. But I was just never really good at fishing. Mm-hmm. And like I said last night, I humped a fishing pole up and down to this lake, and I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way. And I went to my music pastor, Frank, and I was like, man, you're like this fly fisher guy. I'm like, is it cool? He's like, yeah. I said, man, teach me how to do it. And initially, he didn't want to do it. And I'm like, he's like, just no. And I'm like, Frank, you can't tell me no. You're a pastor. And he's like, no. And I'm like, why? He said, it's hard. People aren't very good at it. It's what I do to relax. I'm not a teacher. And I begged and I pleaded, and he finally relented. And he took me fishing the next day. I caught 6 fish, and I just turned into a monster. I was so captivated with the sport, and I was like, this is amazing.
So, okay, first of all, I mean, I've now fly fished for 35 years.
Wow.
And you made a comment on my opening. Of course, on the open, they grabbed the worst piece of me getting the line out. I'm like, no, that's why did you grab? Anyway, you're like, you need to fix your backcast. No, that's the worst clip. Anyway, but, I mean, just learning to casting in the first day alone is extremely challenging. To put 6 fish on is incredible. You had this inane gift then deep inside you that you didn't even know.
I did, and I feel very, very blessed. If you show me something once, I usually have it about 90%. And I've always had that. I'm a visual learner. I teach visually, but show me how to do it. And so everywhere I go and anything that I do, I'm always seeking the guy that's the best, that can articulate it the best, and show me with finite detail how to do it, because then I will replicate that in a second.
So even as a guide, when you're done with your season, if you want to go fishing somewhere else, the tropics or wherever that might be, you're going to hire a guide, and you're going to take things that they're teaching you to improve how you're teaching your clients or different tips and techniques. So you're always learning.
Absolutely. I'm a true student of the game, and I go on a trip every year. This year I'm going back to Puerto Rico. We went on an exploratory trip to Puerto Rico last year for tarpon. Had a fantastic experience. I've been to the Seychelles. I've been to Christmas Island. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Alaska a dozen times. And every time I'm like, show me. Be hard on me. Don't let me get away with just being average, because I'm not here for that. I'm more here to learn.
Right.
Yeah, I want to catch fish, but I've learned in the process, the better you are, the more successful you will be. And that's why I want to really drill it down. And I take something away from every trip, and I've been able to incorporate, everything that I've learned on these trips. I've always been able to find something that I can just bring back to my home water and implement.
Right. So I want to get a little bit into your background as well. Okay, so fly fishing at an early age. You are a military man.
Correct.
14 years Army, 12 years Air Force. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
And do you think that background has you in that mode of show me I'm going to be able to do it, I can capture the moment kind of a thing? First of all, thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I don't know, based on the number of people that I see, where I can show them something one time and they got it, I honestly think that's like 1% of the population.
Okay.
I thought most people were like that.
Mm-hmm.
But after guiding thousands of clients, I realized that is not the norm.
Right.
The one thing the military did instill in me was extreme attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're jumping out of an airplane,
did you do that?
I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I still remember there was a placard in the hangar at Fort Benning. It said, "The sky, even more so than the sea, is unforgiving for even the slightest mistake." And that just stuck with me forever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
some things really matter. And if we make a mistake in fly fishing, it's not the end of the world. We'll row back up. We'll get you another one. But I'm extremely analytical, and that's one of the things that really has made me a better fly fisherman, more so than just all my pursuits. It's watching people, and it's like, oh, well, that worked. Well, that didn't work. The way he's casting is a little better, and the way that guy's doing it isn't working. And so, I just analyze a lot of stuff, and so it's really made me a lot better guide,
right,
and personally a better fisherman myself.
So you, 26 years in the military. You saw some action in Afghanistan. We talked about this off the air.
Yes, sir.
And then after that, you went back to home, which then was Colorado and then Montana. Is that kind of the rough course path there?
Correct. Yeah, I was born and raised in Montana, and just Montana's home.
Yeah.
And in the words of Brad Pitt, "And a river runs through it." I'll never leave Montana, brother.
and you have it. So after military service, how did you then decide to get into becoming a guide? Just a passion for fly fishing, or was this always a dream deep inside you? They're like, when I'm done, I want to do guiding.
It was always a pipe dream, and dreams without action are just dreams.
Right.
And sometimes we just need a little bit of a push. And I was forced retired due to extreme budget cuts, and here I am in Bozeman, Montana. I don't know a soul. I have a master's degree. I couldn't get a $10 an hour job answering the phone at Sims Waiters. I could not. I had a top secret security clearance. I was teaching advanced space studies at the graduate level in Colorado, and I literally could not crack the fishing industry.
Wow.
For $10 an hour.
That's crazy.
Couldn't do it.
I mean, you would think, because, and this was what year?
2014.
So, but there's that push to hire veterans in any job, and they still wouldn't let you in the door.
I couldn't get an interview.
Wow.
If I got an interview, I would have got the job.
Right.
I couldn't get past the HR lady.
Oh, my
I
gosh.
couldn't. I called contacts. I tried to get anybody to listen to me, and nobody listened to me. And it was just God. Just God had that door shut, and his foot was on it. He wasn't going to let it open. And so a guide friend of mine that I knew in Colorado, he's like, I was talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, I got my best friend, my brother from another mother, is a guide on the Missouri River, and I want to introduce you guys." And so he introduced me to him, called him up. We hit it off. I think we talked for about 2 hours on the phone that first day. He said, "Come on up." I went up there. I didn't know how to row a drift boat. And so he's like, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll help you get started. And so he rode me around, or I rode him around for about 35 days. It was a pretty good gig for him. And so over the next couple months, I rode and he fished a lot. And, and he taught me the river. And it was April, and he said, well, time for me to go to work. Good luck. And I was like,
good luck.
What do I do now?
Right.
Like, do I hang out and be a trout bum, learn the water? What do I do? He said, no. He said, here, call these 7 people, tell them I trained you. If they have any questions, they can give me a call. And I was like, wow.
So total blessing by this friend, this guide, to get your foot in the door.
Right. And it was literally the only door got opened. And everybody's like, oh, you're going to be a guide. You're going to get 10 days. If you get 20, you're beyond blessed. I was like, okay. I did 47.
The first year?
First year.
Wow.
And over 100 my second. So I was hustling. And I was like, I would have done it for free, man. I was so in love. I was just so enamored with helping people in their pursuits. And at 3 years, I was able to get my outfitter's license and start my own business and do my own thing. And at the time, it was the kiss of death to become an outfitter. And it's a little less stigmatism now. But I just took the leap of faith.
A seat in your boat, I mean, to get guided by you at this point.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, good.
It's really not. I try not to.
Like overbook?
Overbook. I did that for several years. I really just hammered it out. And my at the end of one season, my wife was like, hey, I'd like to see you a little more. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And so I cut back a bit. And so, yeah. And I always have people that want to book at the last minute.
Right.
And as much as I encourage them to book a year out, so I've always been able to just kind of leave some little spots in my schedule and open them up. And the nice thing about the Missouri is it really fishes. Everything has a super prime time.
Right.
But that river is so solid from April to October. It's just a really, really solid river. So there's always time. There's always an opportunity to get in my boat.
So you're getting into some of the things I'm going to ask you. First of all, okay, so you fish the Missouri River in Montana. And your season, you just said, is basically April to, do you go to September, October?
October.
Yeah.
And October can be just absolutely fantastic. That water temp drops back to 55 degrees, and those fish just put the feed bag on. It's their last opportunity to fatten up before winter, and those big fish know what's coming, and they start to pot up. And on my last guide trip, we caught 8 fish over 23 inches.
Wow.
One was 23, one was 24 inches. 3 of those fish put us into our backing. It was unbelievable. And I had a 10-year client with me, and he was over the moon. He was like, this.
How do you not be, right?
How do you not be?
Right. That's what we all want. We want that trophy fish. The picture that says 1,000 words. It really does, right? So okay, so you're going for browns and rainbows. Is
correct?
That's what's in the river system?
Correct. We have 90% of our fish are brown or rainbows. Sorry. And about 4,000 to 5,000 per mile in our first 11 miles or so.
That's an exorbitant amount of fish in the river system.
It is, and you would think that you would just rope fish all day, and sometimes it's easy, and sometimes
it's fishing.
You're like, man, you guys. Sometimes the fish are really, really dumb, and sometimes they're really kicking your butt, and you're like, man, I could use you to be a little dumb right now, because right now I'm getting my butt kicked and stuff. So, and then you're like, where's all these fish at? And then you'll get this blanket hatch, and all of a sudden, thousands of fish will come to the surface, and you're like, wow, there really is 4,000 fish per mile here. So, it's a little humbling.
Is there because we talked about this a little bit last night, is there you mentioned different sub-seasons amongst the whole season between a hatch or streamers or nymphs or whatever you might be fishing based on the time of year, coming out of snowmelt, going into a hot part of the year, then going into winter. Kind of go over that so people understand.
So in April, things start to thaw out. April's fighting back against winter battle that will be lost many times over the next couple months. We usually get our last snow in June. Wow. Yep. And June can be a little bit rainy as well. Not quite like the rain y'all have out here.
Right.
But we'll get some rain and we'll get some cold weather or whatnot. But the Biggest thing is bugs. If we have bugs, the fishing's good. And when we go through these little lull patterns of no bugs, that's when things start to get a little more challenging. And so if we have the bugs, we do. In April, blue wing olives. May, we start to get some caddis. June, PMDs and caddis. July, tricos. August, pseudos.
Right.
September starts to become a little bit of a lull, but we still have some caddis hanging around, some pseudos hanging around, and then we're all kind of waiting on those blue wings to come out in the end.
And you're matching the hatch. You have to at that point.
Sometimes matching the hatch is always key, but some of the hatches on the Missouri are so overwhelming, you can't compete. And so a lot of times I actually throw something different.
Okay.
So in the midst of a big blue wing hatch, I might throw something just big and obnoxious. Instead of a size 20 trico, I might throw like a size 12 purple haze. Or in the middle of a different type of hatch, I might throw a caddis.
Gotcha.
And just something just looks a little bit different because they get so keyed in and they're so smart. They're like, oh yes, this looks natural, this looks natural. And the one thing I didn't mention last night that I always tell my clients, fish eat three things: presentation, presentation, presentation. And that's it. That's all they eat.
Right.
Every fly in a fly shop will work or they wouldn't sell it.
Right.
Fish eat presentation. If it looks natural to them, it's presented naturally to them, they're going to eat. And our fish eat prolifically. But people have to do their part. I can row you to all the fish in the world, but the last 50 feet is really up to the angler.
Right, because if you splash down, if you crack the line on the water, you're spooking them. It's all, it's over at that point. Yeah.
If you don't mend, you don't keep your line mended and drag free, it's going to drag through the water. It's not going to be natural.
Right.
And your odds of catching them go down significantly.
And all the fishing you do is catch and release, because we're seeing some release here as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of guides on the water, and the limit on the river up there is three per person.
Right.
So 6 per boat.
Yeah.
We could decimate a fishery
Real quick.
really quick.
Right.
And so like I said, you are allowed to keep some fish, but
we all practice the catch and release.
we all practice catch and release.
Especially when you see fish like this. I
Like
mean,
that.
all you want is the picture. It's just gorgeous.
You do, yeah.
And every one of these that you sent in and some of the ones you showed last night, I'm just sitting here with googly eyes and drool running down my face going, oh, this is unbelievable. This is great, And it's not stock. These are all wild fish, too.
Montana does not stock a single fish in any river. They'll stock the reservoirs, they'll stock the lakes, but everything in every river in Montana is 100% natural reproducing. And they fight accordingly. The fish that we have, they fight hard. They run like a freight train. The rainbows just tear out of there. They'll put you into your backing. People are like, oh, there's no trout putting me in my backing, and oh, my reel's just a line holder. Not on the Missouri, man. We have a drag, and I use, $500-600 reels, and people are like, this is a bit overkill for a trout, isn't it? I'm like, you'll see.
And so let's talk a little bit about the setup. What weight rod are you using? What are you floating line, or are you sinking line, or does it depend on the time of year?
So I hardly ever fish a sinking line.
Okay.
For me, almost everything is a floating line. I like a 5 weight for dry fly fishing. I like a 6 weight for nymphing. It's just 6 weight, just a little more power behind it. You got a windy day, even on a windier day, or you're throwing a hopper or something. Sometimes I'll go to a 6 weight on a dry fly, or if somebody just doesn't have the best cast and they just need that little extra push. Sometimes that 6 weight will do it. But personally, I like to fish a 5 for dries, 6 for nymphs, 7 for streamers.
Gotcha. So you're staying 5, 6, 7 weight. That's where you are. Yeah.
That's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And in our river there, I don't fish anything smaller than 4X tippet.
Okay.
Those fish are too big, too powerful.
There's no reason to litter them with flies in line and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and we still do loose flies, but but we lose a lot less in 4X, and that's just me personally. And somebody will be like, "Oh, I use 5X all the time." Well, that's you as an individual. I look at it much differently. I have customers. I have guys that fish 3 days a year, 1 day every 5 years, and so these people don't have these super skills that a lot of the guys in your club do have.
Right.
And guys like that can do a little better. Yeah.
Right.
Can I fish 5X tippet and catch one of these fish and not break off the fly?
Sure.
But
you also you got to play them.
But I have practice.
Yeah.
You know, I have a lot of experience fighting fish, and so. But I want to get those fish in as fast as we can. Get our picture if the client wants it. Get them back in the water safely and live for another day.
You had an amazing story last night, and I brought this picture up to talk about it. You had the whole place in stitches, first of all. You were basically skunked all morning from what you talked about. And then somehow, I don't want to tell the story. You tell the story. This kid caught into some fish, but there's a trick on how he caught into some fish.
So we'd been fishing hard. It was July. We were getting our butts kicked, and a grandfather brought his son, his 2 son-in-laws, and a handful of grandkids with him. And we're out there, and it's the last day. Grayson in the picture behind me, he's 9 years old, and wanted to fish with me, and just had a blast with everyone. Just absolute superb family, the most well-behaved, politest kids ever.
Right.
And I fish them to this day. Just love them to death. Well, Grayson was with me, and we're getting our butt kicked, and no one's catching fish. And I'm persistent, and I just kept changing bugs, changing depth, changing weight, figuring it out. And I'm on about my 8th bug change, and my head's down, and I'm tying a fly or something, and this caddis lands on my leg. And I just picked it up. I put it on my tongue. I stick my tongue out at Grayson because I knew I could feel him watching me, and I eat it. And he was like, "Oh, gross, man." And I was like, "No, man, you got to eat it for luck." He's like, "No way." And his dad's like, "I'll eat one."
So at this point, I just want to put a fish in. I'll do anything.
Yeah, right? He's like, "What's it taste like?" I'm like, "Chicken, man." So long story short, we finally convinced him to eat one. And the next pass, it just found the perfect recipe. And he catches this 21-inch fish, and you can't see it in the picture, but he's got a little life vest on, and he's holding his rod here, and the reel's like clicking against the vest, and he's like fighting it. It's just, and I'm like, "Pull away from your vest," and he's like, "I'm trying." And it was he's just holding on to that rod for dear life, and he lands this 21-inch rainbow.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
But then it gets better.
Yeah.
He catches 8 more behind it. And then we come rolling into lunch, and the other boats are parked up there, and all his cousins are in there. And the one thing about this group of guys is that they all talk trash when no one has a fish on. And the moment someone has a fish on, these kids are legitimately cheering on their cousins. And it's the coolest thing to see. But we're rolling into lunch, and the sarcasm comes out. "Grayson, how many did you catch?" And he goes, 9. You could have heard a pin drop.
That's incredible. Just amazing.
And I hear, "Mr. Darrell, did he really catch 9?" I go, "Mm-hmm." And he goes, "I ate a caddis, and now they're eating me." And his cousins were running through the bushes, and they were eating every bug they could get their hands on, trying to catch some of that luck. It was just so funny. It's just, it's a story we love to tell.
It's so
tell
great.
it every year. But it's just so awesome to see kids have success. And it's hunting the same way kids go out and shoot giant deer. I mean, I shot a 2-point buck, and most of the people I know when growing up, we shot a 2-point buck, and now there's kids out there with just this awesome luck. And
Right.
But this whole family is a family of athletes. pro baseball players, pro football players in
Wow.
the family, and all the kids are just tremendous athletes, and that really is a testament to their abilities as well. But just super awesome. It was a great story.
It is a great story. It was unbelievable last night. You had the place rolling, so
Thank you.
And I wanted to bring that back up. So as I go through some of these pictures here, I mean, we're seeing absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous rainbows. The deep red stripe on the cheek, down the side of the fish. I mean, they go through that color change throughout the year too. So something you catch in spring is going to look a little bit different as we go into fall, as the weather begins to change and all too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And especially the browns, you see it probably the most dramatic in the browns, and in the wintertime, those browns are living deeper. There's not as much sunshine, and so you'll catch a brown in the springtime. It'll be kind of silvery, kind of dark, and then as that summer progresses, those fish move into shallow water, less than a foot of water, and then the photosynthesis, they start to butter up.
Yeah.
And they start to gain that camouflage because they're tight to the bank. And then this one here, that's a June fish there. And as they progress further of the year, they just get orange and buttery and
So pretty.
They're stunning fish.
They are.
That is one of the biggest rainbows we ever caught there, and we hooked that fish. That fish ran all the way across the river. The river's 100 yards across, and that thing ran in one run all the way across the river. It was unbelievable. And I caught that fish in May, and then in the same half-mile stretch of water, I caught that same fish, or I didn't, my client caught it, in September.
Wow.
And I lined up the spots on the adipose fin, and I knew it was the same fish. But just the absolute girth on that fish.
It's just incredible. It
Unbelievable.
really is. How long do the fish live in your ecosystems?
So rainbows live about 5 to 6 years,
Okay.
and the browns live about 7 years.
And what are the, if there's such a thing, what are the trophy sizes on your river for browns and or rainbows? 20 plus, 23, 25?
Trophies in the angler.
Yeah, that's true.
Trophies in the angler.
Right.
I mean, if someone's never caught a fish before,
And then a 5-inch fish is a trophy.
they catch a 17-inch rainbow, and
Right.
you just don't know. So it's, who am I to say what your trophy is?
Okay.
Now, for me, I love to hunt big fish.
Right.
And people are like, oh, it's a huge fish. I go, oh, how big was it? And they're like 18 inches. And I'm like, okay, that's an average fish. And that's awful to say. It's terrible to say that.
So let me rephrase that question then, Darrel.
So
what's the average fish, if there is, in the Missouri where you are guiding, and what's like, hey, when you look at the client and go, that was a really nice fish?
18 inches is average.
Okay.
Anything over 20 inches, in my eyes, is an absolute trophy.
Right.
Anything 22, 23 and above. Most of our fish don't get too far over 24 inches.
Okay.
I think we probably caught somewhere around 14 fish this year that were over 24 inches. I did get the best fish I've ever had in my boat that we finally landed. It was a 27-inch fish, and it was a long-time client, and he got in there, and when I saw it, I stood up to net it. I was like, man, I don't think that thing's going to fit in the net. But I was like, wow. Yeah. And we got it out, and we measured that sucker, and that's a 2-footer right there. Add another 3 inches to that thing.
I mean, no matter
Now
what.
see the kind of the silvery color on that.
On the back.
That's around that's just after Memorial Day.
Okay.
Is when that picture was taken there. So
Whereas the other ones that were more yellowish, and I'll see if I can grab to one real quick here. These are some rainbows, gorgeous rainbows. I kept up like this more golden in the color. This is now later in the season.
yep, that's a June fish there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to skip over these rainbows, by the way. They're just
no.
gorgeous.
Well, the phenomenal thing about the rainbows is our rainbows fight so hard, and they run so hard, and it's nothing for a rainbow to jump 4 to 8 times
During the fight.
during the fight.
Wow. And I mean, clear water by several feet.
Oh yeah, I mean 10 feet. I mean, I'm sitting in my drift boat, and I will see fish above eye level as they come out of the water. And I think there was one of the videos that you showed.
Yeah.
There was a gal in a boat, and you'll see that fish. Not that video.
Yeah,
it's that one there.
Yeah.
Now this picture here is unbelievable, and you'll see this. She hooks this fish, and it jumps one time, and then the next time it jumps, it almost hits my oar. Bam.
She's on right there.
She
Yep.
hooks right there.
Yep.
Gavin slows the camera down here, and out comes this fish. Watch how far this fish is below the
Oh
boat.
my gosh.
Look at how far that fish just jumped.
Jeez.
Now wait, in 2 seconds.
Because now it's blitzing. Oh. Wow. Just wow.
When she hooked that fish, it was 30 feet below the boat on its first jump.
Wow.
And in 2 jumps, it almost lands on the boat.
It's incredible. And then the fight is on, because this video, I think we're in about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I mean, this is,
Yeah.
this is an awesome fight.
And that was quick. And
Right.
as you can see, I'm spinning my boat.
Right.
I am there to help my angler.
Right.
As soon as I have a client get a fish on, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you land that fish. I'm not going to just continue to row you down the river and not help you. I'm talking to her this whole fight. Reel 2 turns, lower your rod, okay, let them run. I'm coaching them through the whole fight because it is, especially when you get a big fish on, it's a little panicky because
Yeah.
we all want to land that fish.
But we all will do everything wrong, not even knowing it. We're like, I'm really, yeah, and yeah.
People clamp down on that fly line, don't even realize it, and folks will lose fish. And a lot of times I can tell you, this is what you did. They're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, my buddy's like, yeah, you did.
You did. We watched it happen.
Yeah. And then sometimes guys are like, what'd I do wrong? I'm like, nothing.
Right.
Sometimes they just win.
Yeah.
And they do. And I always joke, in the most literal sense of the word, these fish make a living spitting that hook.
Yeah.
Because somebody like me is gonna remove the hook, pat him on the tail fin, tell him thanks for playing and have a great day.
Right.
And somebody's gonna bonk him over the head and take him home for dinner.
Yeah.
And they don't know which. So everything a fish does is instinctual. Fish aren't being snotty to you. They are just, everything they do is instinctual. And when they have a sharp hook in their face attached to a line, their instinct is to survive. And so they're gonna do everything. A lot of these fish will run from you. A lot of the big fish will run right at you because they have learned if I run at you, I can create slack, and a lot of people can't keep up.
Right. And therefore, the hooking.
Gone.
Yeah.
And they absolutely are pros at throwing that hook. And that's why the rainbows jump.
Mm-hmm.
They jump and they're just like.
It is true. It is true.
Yeah.
Go through a couple more pictures here. All right, so people watching right now, and they are now hooked. They're like, I gotta go. I gotta go. So what is some of the best practices? I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm gonna go to your website, which I'm gonna show here in just a second. What's our first conversation? How are we beginning hiring you as a guide?
So the first thing I want to know is who you are and what your goals are. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do you want? What's your experience level? What do you want? And we'll build the trip from there. And based on what you want, we're going to pick a month. We're going to pick a time. We're going to pick a number of days that I like. And I like to see people for a minimum of 3 days.
Okay.
3 days is an absolute fantastic trip. Even for experienced anglers. That first day, come on out, knocking some rust off. I'm getting to know you. You're getting to know me. And you're understanding my verbiage. You understand what I'm asking of you. Second day, people come out, and especially beginners, it's so fun to watch somebody who has never done it before. And the first 4 hours is pretty tough. As you know, there's a big learning curve to fly fishing.
Yeah.
So that first 4 hours, there's lots of reminders of how to cast, how to mend, how to set, how to fight, how to land, all that. It's constantly being repeated. After about 4 hours, life starts to get a little bit easier. And then the next day they come out and something happens when you sleep, and you wake up the next day and you are just exponentially better than you were the first day. And then the third day you come out and people are just firing on all cylinders. And what 3 days also does is it really builds a good foundation for the sport. And if people just come out and fish one day, whatever they learned in that day, they're going to forget a year or 2 or 3 from now, whenever they come back out. When you fish for 3 days, it really starts to build a strong foundation. If you have someone that's going to continually teach you, if somebody just teaches you the mere basics, you're not really going to hang on to that.
Right. But you really, your goal is to educate them, teach them that lifelong skill, so that if they come back to you, you can kind of pick up where you've left off. There may be some rust, as you said.
Sure.
Or if they even go somewhere else, they have a really good base knowledge.
Right.
Where that particular guy, be like, oh, you know what you're doing, kind of a thing.
Well, most of my life, I was never able to afford a guide.
Right.
And so when somebody is able to come out and spend the money on it, I try to exceed their expectations. I don't ever want people to walk away and be like, man, I didn't get my money's worth out of that. I try to exceed people's expectations. And I understand there are people that have the resources to hire a guide every time they fish. A lot of people can't, and I get that. And that's the person that I'm really working for, is I want to teach you how to fish properly. So regardless of where you find yourself in the world, you can be successful and you can catch fish. And when you're on your own and you're out here in Virginia and you can't cast past the end of your rod because you're just falling apart, you can reflect back on the day with me and be like, oh, Darrell told me to watch my back cast and see how far back my flyer. Oh, it's way back. Oh,
right.
I need to stop my rod tip at 1 o'clock. Oh, there it is. Now they can be successful without a guide. And you were talking earlier about how to prepare.
Right.
Well, casting into the wind is your best teacher. If you can cast a 30-foot cast like a laser into the wind and stop your rod tip at 1 o'clock, finish your rod tip a foot off the ground, and if you can throw a laser 30, 35 feet, that's your best teacher right there. If your fly line piles up at your feet, you did something wrong.
For sure. And
So
it happens, for sure.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
We rush the cast. We bring it too far back. We don't let it extend. We close the loop, whatever the case may be. Yeah.
And I am not impervious to that. I mess it up all the time. And when I go fish on my own, I'm like, I have plenty of rust because
you're guiding for
I
7
guide.
months, right? Exactly.
People are like, oh, how often do you get to fish? And it's about 3.5 days a year.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But I live vicariously through the people in my boat, and God has blessed me beyond what I deserve, and it's awesome. I love what I do. I love seeing people's reactions and helping people be successful in their pursuits, and there's nothing else I'd rather do.
And you can see it just in your clients here and the videos that you put, and then of course some of the pictures that we've gone through here. These are just awesome stuff for sure. Okay, so now I've called you. We've had our initial conversation. We've decided I'm going to come in, let's say, the end of July. You tell me that's a good time. Maybe that is, maybe that isn't. I'm doing 3 days. What do I need to bring with me? Where am I staying? Where am I flying into? Because you're not in Bozeman and you're not in Helena, Montana. You're in a very small little area in Montana.
Right. So Craig, Montana is pretty much equidistant between Helena and Great Falls, about 45 miles from each. So you can fly into Helena, you can fly into Great Falls. Small airports, you're going to pay a premium to fly into those smaller airports. But your rental car is going to be a little bit cheaper. Flying to Bozeman, Southwest flies into there. Airfare's probably going to be cheaper. Your rental car's probably going to be a lot more. And then flying east, when I flew out here, my flight was at 6 a.m.
Right.
So do you want to be 2 hours from Bozeman Airport when you're flying out at 6 a.m.?
Right.
So then you need a hotel in Bozeman. In the summer, it might be $500 a night. So it's something to consider. So that $300 less airfare starts to look a lot less attractive. So, but everybody has what what they need. I just want people to be aware of that. So,
Sure.
Any of those work? There are full service lodges on the Missouri. That covers your dining, your lodging, your food, your alcohol. Put you in a hotel. I can pretty much get everybody out there on any type of budget.
Gotcha.
So I'm a very, very small independent outfitter. I'm there for you. I'm there to work for you. I'm not gonna be like, well, yeah, just find a hotel somewhere. I'm gonna give you recommendations. Hey, what do you want, Matt? You want to stay in a lodge? Cool. What's your vibe? And based off our conversation, figure out who you are, where you're gonna be the most comfortable, and where you're just gonna feel at home and relax. And it's your vacation, and you're spending your vacation.
Right.
And people only get so much of that. You're spending your hard-earned resources on there, and I want you to have absolutely the best experience that you can.
And that makes sense. So what am I bringing as a client? Am I bringing my own gear? Am I using your gear? Or is it really a preference to the angler?
Really a preference to the angler. If guys have gear that they like and want to use and they're comfortable, absolutely bring it.
Right. So, and if you break it, you got gear for me anyway. Right. So
right. Yeah. No, I was joking. The guys are like, "Can I bring my own rod?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd rather see you break your rod than my rod."
Right.
So,
for sure.
But that's where the break came from.
True. I get it.
But sometimes traveling with gear is kind of a hassle. And guys are like, "Oh, do I need waders?" Most of the time, we don't need waders. We're fishing from a drift boat. We're not getting in the water. I'm getting in and out of the water, launching and recovering the boat, and sometimes walking it upstream or something. But I'm used to being cold and wet, so not a big deal there. You can bring your own gear if you want. Rain gear is a must.
Yeah.
Montana on the shoulder seasons, in the spring and the fall, layers, puffy jacket, stuff like that. Rain gear's a must. You just never know. We don't get a lot of rain, but we were joking last night. Billy was with me, and we got zapped in July with a rainstorm, and it dropped 1.63 inches in 22 minutes. And it's rare,
right?
But I mean, there was nothing. All of us were soaked to our underwear in about 2 minutes. It was just
nothing you could do.
There's nothing you can do at that point. It just absolutely just hammered down on us. But
that's when you need a meteorologist in your drift boat. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And it probably did call for rain. But the funny thing is, in the 35 miles that we fish, you might have 3 different weathers throughout that because of the mountains, and one might skirt around you. You might miss one, and then some days like that one, you're the bug in the middle of the windshield, and that's what we were.
And that's it. You're done.
But it really, you don't really need to bring anything except just a great attitude, and we'll just have a good time.
And be willing to be coachable.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. People who want to learn and people who really want to take their skills to that next level, that's one of my strong suits. I teach really, really well. I'm very analytical. I can nitpick you to death and really help you get to the next level. But what I always tell people too is, and I know a lot of people at the meeting last night have a lot of experience.
Sure.
I never tell people I will teach you the way. There is no the way. I will teach you a way, and I will teach you the best way that I know how to help you succeed. But every guide's different. Everybody does it a little bit different. And maybe you go out with me and you learn, and then the next day you're out with one of my other guides, and maybe he says something just a little bit different, and that's what clicks for you.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not the know-all, be-all. I'm not the best guide out there. And people are like, "Oh, who's the best guide?" well, there's really no such thing as the best guide. The best guide
Is the one that you connect with the best.
it's the one that you connect with
Yeah.
the best. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who do you want to spend your vacation with? Who do you relate with? Who do you want to be coached by?
Right.
It's a relationship, and over the last 10 years I've just made some tremendous relationships, and we have a great time, and guys come back year after year, and guys will come back 3 or 4 years, and they're like, hey man, I want to go try something else. Where do you recommend? And I'll make a phone call on their behalf, and we'll get them out to get a different experience.
Right. That's awesome. I mean, that's nice that you would do that too.
Well, of course.
But-
I'm not a selfish guy. I don't do it for me. I do it for the sport, and I do it for the individual.
Right.
I love to salt fish. For me, I was able to go on my very first salt trip. I went to the Seychelles, and I was like, holy
Different
cow.
game altogether.
Oh, completely different game.
Yeah.
I caught 20 different species of fish, and I would love to go back, but that trip now is pushing $20,000.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't pay. I paid about half of that.
Right. But,
But
yeah.
it was still a big trip. But I love to go just try something new, learn something different, and it's in some of the best fishing in North America is in the summertime.
Right.
Well, in the summertime, I got to make.
You're in your money time. Yeah.
I got to make a little bit of money, and so I kind of rely on the wintertime to go somewhere warm, and it's always nice to get out of the Montana winter too for a week or two, and get out of there and go wade in a warm beach somewhere.
Because not hitting 0 for a high for a week straight gets a little old sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get it.
As much as you can love to ski, it wears on you a little bit.
For sure, for sure. Darrel, if people want to get in touch with you, about that trip that you want to book about a year in advance is probably a good thing. Maybe 8 months in advance. Is that a good idea? I know you said you keep a couple of days open, but yeah.
The earlier you book, the better.
Okay.
And the very best guides, especially for prime time, June, July. Those are probably our 2 heaviest months.
Okay.
The very best guides book a year out, and it's because people rebook the same day year after year. They know how good certain days are, and they want that experience year after year. But every now and then, something happens, and people are just like, we had a group this year, was absolutely in a prime week, and at the end, I was like, okay. And I mean, they had this trip on my calendar for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me for 7 days, and I'm like, well, I already have these people and these people. And so after a couple years, they finally took that whole 7 days from me. And then they're like, oh, hey, we're not coming back. And I was like, oh, wow.
Oh.
They're like, we're going to go do something different. I was like, cool.
Right.
And it opened up. So openings like that do happen.
Right.
Booking early is always your best bet. But there's always room.
You'll find room.
I'll find room for people. But yeah, if you want the best and the best experience, the best accommodations, and kind of your pick, and the best thing folks can do is get a hold of me. Let me walk you through the trip, and we'll find the right dates. And if you have a date in mind, don't buy a plane ticket and then call me.
Right.
Because maybe I can shift a day or two left or right. Sometimes I can move a client left or right, and we can get you in. Get it sorted out.
Perfect. Darrel, I want to thank you for joining us on Off the Hook with Matty D. It was a pleasure hearing you last night. It was even more fun on this one-on-one, so really great stuff.
Matt, thanks so much for having me out. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Come see me.
I will. I have a group that, how many can I bring?
As many as you want.
Okay. I got a group.
You got a group.
We're gonna have some conversations.
Well, yeah, let's.
Because I got some groups that are guys that I fish with that are doing bucket list trips now. Because we're getting older, we want to hit these types of things.
And that's it. Bucket list trips, father-son trips, they're
Yeah.
all so important to build those memories. And the one flaw we have is we always think we have time.
Time ends before we know it.
And sometimes it runs out on us. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't wait. Come do it.
I will come do it. Once again, my guest today was Darrel DeLeon and Darrel DeLeon. Excuse me. Gosh, I just messed that up. And it is Montana Trophy Hunters. Let me bring that. Time talking with him. And once again, this is Off the Hook with Matty D. We will see you next time. Thanks for joining us for another